No.
Oh, okay, so just asking, I didn't know if I missed it.
And yet, we're live? All right. Well, good afternoon once again, everyone, and thank you for coming. Those that are joining us virtually, thank you for doing so. Today, we address an issue of serious concern, and it serves to crime in Reading. With the rash of recent and isolated shootings, residents have asked our administration to not only comment on crime within the city of Reading, but to take action. Today, I'm joined by Reading Police Chief, Mr. Richard Tornielli, along with our Reading School District Superintendent, Dr. Khalid Mumin, who will also offer a few perspectives on crime in Reading and how we can work together moving forward. Even though crime was down in Reading by 22% in 2020, recent shootings has frightened our residents, and rightfully, to say the least. Criminals and criminality are not welcome in Reading, to say the least. Families are torn apart, neighborhoods are damaged, and communities suffer as a whole due to gun violence. But City Hall cannot combat crime by itself. It takes an entire community to work these issues. Again, we cannot do it alone. I often say we are each other's neighbors. So today, I am announcing a call to action. First, I am announcing a call to action which will engage a gun buyback program that will take guns out of our streets. Again, I'm announcing that we're gonna do a gun buyback program that is gonna take guns out of our streets. According to several studies, gun buyback programs have been shown to be successful, not only in reducing the number of guns on our streets, but also reducing injuries and deaths. More than 27% of Pennsylvania own guns, according to Injury Prevention, a publication that follows such activities. Americans lead the world in gun ownership. In fact, Americans own 121 firearms for every 100 civilians. Canada, for instance, reports 53 firearms per 100 civilians. And even more surprising, in Mexico, where 13 firearms are reported per 100 civilians. Research has also shown that in some American cities, such as Sacramento, more than 40% of those who have participated in gun buyback programs did not purchase another gun afterwards. This is one tool that has been proven effective, even though it's not the only one. A second tool that I would like to talk about today is the exploration of an auxiliary police program that empowers residents to work with local police. All auxiliary police officers are civilians that are trained to support police and serve as volunteers who would donate their time to serve as eyes and ears for our community. They would also assist police with traffic control details during special events, data entry, and community policing programs, to name a few. These auxiliary police officers will be required to attend training classes that detail the inner working of the Reading Police Department, complete a background check, and any additional training, to say the least. Again, this initiative will require greater research, collaboration, and resources, which and why it is in current discussions in the early phases of those discussions. I, along with Chief Tornielli and community leaders, will engage in productive discussions in the very near future to discuss this initiative further. I have personally had experience with such program being raised in New York City and seeing how that could come to fruition for the benefit of the community. Now, I'm not comparing the city of Reading and the city, the Reading Police Department with the New York City, but again, these are conversations that could potentially come to fruition, and I am hopeful that we can in one way or another. Lastly, our call to action will also look to partner with community organizations such as Youth Build, Moms Demand Action, the Village of Reading, which the director is here present today. Thank you for doing so. Reading Recreation Commission, the Olivet Boys and Girls Club, the Reading School District, to name a few, that are interested in curbing crime in our city. We are asking for those who are interested and invested in our community to reach out to the mayor's office. You know, we need to engage in these conversations directly to set up dialogue along with measurable outcomes on how we can pull our resources to combat research crimes in our city. I'd like you to call that number directly to engage in conversations with myself and my staff, and that number is 610-655-6234. That is a direct number to the mayor's office. That I like for anybody who is interested, willing, ready, and able to engage in positive conversation to combat crime in the city of Reading, to call us at the earliest convenience. Now, I'd like to turn it over to Chief Tornielli, who will provide a more detailed outlook of crime in the city. And afterwards, he will be followed by Dr. Mumin. Lastly, I will return and share some of my comments in Spanish for those that like to record it.
Good afternoon. Late in the evening on February 5th, a 16-year-old young woman was shot and killed. Her 17-year-old sister was wounded by gunfire. A 14-year-old young man was arrested for this horrible crime. That incident drew the collective attention of our community to the fact that violence does exist in our community, but more importantly, there are things that we can do to prevent it. The Reading Police Department has always made the reduction of crime, and specifically violent crime, a priority in our operations. In 2020, our patrol officers and investigators seized 234 firearms during the course of their duties. 234 firearms that are no longer on the streets and able to be used to harm our neighbors. Through partnerships with the District Attorney's Office, the Berks County Detectives, the Pennsylvania State Police, and our federal task forces with the FBI, DEA, Homeland Security, and the U.S. Marshal Service, we conduct daily operations targeting gun crimes and crimes that predicate gun violence, such as drug and human trafficking. While all of our partnerships and federal task forces have conducted significant operations related to gun violence, I would like to specifically highlight the work of two of them. Established in March 2020, our task force participation with the U.S. Marshal Service has resulted in the arrest of 98 individuals, with many of them wanted for violent crimes. During those operations, the task force officers also seized 11 firearms. Our longstanding task force participation with the DEA resulted in the arrest of 7 individuals on federal charges, the seizure of 18 firearms, and the seizure of large amounts of illegal narcotics destined for distribution within our city. As recent tragedies and the events of February 5th have shown us, many of the gun-related crimes in our city are perpetrated by young adults and juveniles. In order to make a difference and prevent these incidents from occurring, incidents that take lives and forever alter the lives of so many, we need help. We need help from family members, community leaders, teachers, and members of the faith-based community. We all need to pay attention to what is going on in our children's lives and intervene to prevent violence and tragedy in our communities. Our children need to get back in their classrooms, places where the structure and care that is shown by their teachers can also help prevent these tragedies. And specifically, in terms of law enforcement, we need the Berks County Probation Office, and specifically their Juvenile Probation Office, to get back to meaningful work. Since the start of the pandemic, there has been little to no enforcement or compliance checks on juveniles under supervision in their homes and communities. The rate of recidivism of unsupervised juvenile offenders as it relates to violent crime is staggering. 19 juvenile offenders under the supervision of the Berks County Juvenile Probation Office committed acts of gun violence in 2020. I call on the leadership of the county probation offices to let the excellent men and women that work for you to get out in our community and do the great work they always do to help us prevent these tragedies. Now is not the time for hyperbole and dramatics. Statements like there's an epidemic of gun violence or there's unchecked gun violence in our city are not based in fact and serve to paint a picture that is not an accurate representation of our city. Crime in our city is at its lowest level in decades. The city of Reading experienced a 22% reduction in the most serious crimes reported to the police department in 2020, which included a 3% reduction in violent crime. And while it is a fact that our rate of gun-related crimes exceeded our 3-year average in 2020, a metric we use to track the overall trends of crime in the city, statistically, gun-related violent crime is nowhere near the levels it was just a few short years ago. We all work and continue to work to make our community a safer place to live, raise a family, work, receive an education, or visit. But with all that being said, any crime, any violent act, any gun violence is unacceptable, and it will be pursued with every resource available to the Reading Police Department. In November 2020, we partnered with the ATF to begin conducting investigations into gun trafficking in the city of Reading. That initiative and many others continue daily. I have recently appointed a lieutenant to serve as a coordinator of our local, state, and federal law enforcement partners to focus all of our resources on locating those individuals responsible for bringing violence to our communities and prosecuting them in federal court as frequently as possible. We will not tolerate violence in our community. Our community will not tolerate violence, and together we will defeat the threat that a few pose to the safety of our community. We are all aware of the work that needs to be done. Actions always speak louder than words. It's time for all of us to double our efforts and get to work. Thank you.
Now, Dr. Mumin will discuss some of the resources available to students who are impacted by crimes here in the city of Reading.
Thank you, Mayor Moran. Thank you for having me here today. As we know that crime in the community it's not simply has deep local impact, but as we know, nationally, violence in communities can have very painstaking and very, dramatic effects on communities and how they're viewed and perceptual issues, et cetera, et cetera. As the superintendent of the Reading School District, I'm here to let you know wholeheartedly that we are positioned and we are ready to support the mayor in his initiatives with his administration to be able to further the message around safety in our communities, and for me personally, safety in our schools. I want to take you on a quick journey of our readiness as a school district. Back on Valentine's Day, 2018, we are all very familiar with the Stoneman Douglas shooting, or Stoneman Douglas massacre that occurred in Florida, where 17 young people's lives were taken. The energy and emotion around that incident had student leaders from Stoneman Douglas galvanize the youth nationally to start a protest, to implement a protest nationally on March 14, 2018. Now, what does that mean for us? Yes, our students were very much intrigued and interested in participating. From an academic standpoint, there were a lot of concerns about what our school district is going to do with students. What are superintendents going to do if kids walk out? And I was in a meeting and one of my colleagues turned to me and said, so what are you going to do with your 18,000 kids, Dr. Mumin? I said, quite simply, we're going to work with the student leadership. The student leaders are going to work with the teachers and administrators. They're going to construct plans and they're going to walk out for 17 minutes and they're going to return and have control of the school day in regards to their action efforts around preventing gun violence in the city. And then I ended with this statement, and this is where the passion and purpose comes in, is that as the superintendent of the Reading School District, where 99% of the students are underserved, who am I as the superintendent to tell our kids that they are not allowed to exercise voice, that they're not allowed to engage with community partners, and they are not allowed to take on the responsibility to end a problem that's dramatically impacting them, their families, and the community. So our students did mobilize. They mobilized with Peace on the Streets. We had students at the moms rallies. We've had students who walked the city and put up posters and things of that nature to curb gun violence, because it does impact them. I always say that schools are a microcosm of society. And there's no secret that when there's violence in the community and students are injured or killed, that it impacts the school community impacts the school community. Therefore, in the Reading School District, we have crisis response teams, where right now we're in a total virtual environment. So those crisis response teams, when there is a crisis in the neighborhood that impacts our students, they're able to engage in discussion with our counselors, social workers, and school nurses to be able to talk about the pain points and the emotionalities involved with dealing with violence in the neighborhood. Not only do we have the virtual environment, we also maintain physical environments for our students to meet. For example, the most recent incident that Mayor Morán spoke of is that our students were able to engage again on a virtual platform, and also at Thomas Ford Learning Academy, which is the Reading School District school. So with that said, I just wanted to overtly state that we are in support of the mayor's initiatives, and we're looking forward to some spirited dialogue around action steps. Our children, again, being in schools, it's a great community of learners, and they really do care about this city. So any effort and positive energy around stopping crime in the city that we can be supportive of, Mayor Morán, we stand ready and we're well positioned to implement those plans. So thank you again for having me here today.
Thank you, Dr. Mumin.
My pleasure.
It's exactly why I asked the Reading School District to be here today, because from the beginning of my administration, when I was elected, I knew that in order for us to move forward and to enhance our community's needs, it's going to take everybody's. It's going to take both sides of Washington Street. I've said that in the past. I believe wholeheartedly that in partnerships like ours, we will combat this, and we're gonna create the synergy to make a better Reading. I want to thank Chief Tornielli, of course, Dr. Mumin. I also want to thank our state representative, Manuel Manny Guzman Jr., who is on here, and we're gonna need a lot of help from the state. So it gives me great pleasure that you're here with us today. Administration thanks you all for your bold leadership and all that you do to maintain our community along with our youth safe. As you heard today, we are far from finished. In fact, we just begun talking these difficult issues. And I can assure you that I am not one to just come here and give you a statement. I won't come here in your presence unless I have an action plan. And these action plans are to be moving forward within days to come. So again, thank you for being here. And now, due to time constraints that Dr. Mumin has another commitment, I was gonna read my statement in Spanish, but I'm gonna allow a couple of minutes for some questions before he has to excuse himself. And then I'll be more than happy to read my statement in Spanish for any media outlets that would like to record it, and for the audience on live, on social media. Any questions?
Was this last shooting, the 14-year-old, was that the impetus? Was that what neighbors really were saying, this, something has to change? Can you talk about how upsetting that was for?
Well, that definitely hit home, but any incident, any shooting hits home.
But that one in particular, can you talk about how upsetting?
But you know, that definitely drew the straw. But we've been having communications and talks for several weeks now. So again, any isolated or any gun involvement shooting, it's a tragedy. So
Of course,
yeah.
when you heard about a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old.
Of course, I'm a father of 20-year-old twins. When I decided to run for the school board, for mayor, was because I wanted to make sure that I did my part to the best of my abilities to create a safe haven for all those that reside. I came from the Reading School District as a former school board member, which represented 18,000. So every day I think about the youth and how they are impacted by gun violence. So, yes.
That's what I'm asking. Did more people reach out to you after that? Did you hear more people on the street talking about that? That's what I'm asking.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, there's been a lot of talk, since, a lot more people have been reaching out, and you see it on social media, people, are frustrated. And yes, after this last incident, we saw a lot more people coming out. Just last Friday, the village of Reading did a forum out at the Oliver's Boys and Girls Club, along with many other partners, my office also being involved. So we're hearing the community. So yes. Any other question? Mr. Long?
It's not simple, but you kind of shed some light on
Thank
You take them. Thank you.
As a lifelong educator, we know that, for our kids, for sure, the best form of instruction is in-school instruction. But let's be very realistic. This is a pandemic, and there are a lot of variables that go into having students return to school safely. So with that said, where we are currently in the Reading School District, we are 100% virtual. However, when going into this school year, Pennsylvania Department of Education presented 3 guidelines that schools could re-enter, students could re-enter schools. And here in the Reading School District, we chose 3A, 3B. So we have not only 3 options, but we have an additional option. Option 1 is, of course, face-to-face in-school instruction. Option 2 is a hybrid plan. Option 3 is virtual instruction, where the students are home and teachers are in schools, and perhaps small learning groups for our most underserved students, which would be our special ed learners, ELL, English language learners, and also homeless students. And we are in 3B, which is complete virtual. So as we're continuing to look at the data, the health data, also working to have our facilities upgraded and certified for safe return, the most logical step for us in the school district is to go from 3A to 3B, which would be small group instruction, along with small groupings of teachers, but that's going to be based on the health and safety data, and also perhaps the access to vaccines and testing. So all plans are on the table. We're constantly looking at every angle, every way that we can return students to school safely. I speak fondly about having a crystal ball and saying, what if the numbers go down and vaccines are available and testing is available? Will students perhaps be returning to the classroom in some capacity this school year? And my answer to that with great, with being very emphatic, I would hope that it's yes, because we know that is the best opportunity for our students to be prepared for an ever-changing society.
But do you agree that some of this violence could be attributed to these kids being picked up and not being checked up on, and a lot of the resources going by the wayside?
No, I will not justify that comment, because there's no data set that says while students are in school, violence goes down. What I think it is for us, there's an added opportunity when our students are in school, because that support is face to face and it's immediate. There are not barriers, for example, like being online in an online environment and understanding, is this really truly a small group or a breakout group where a student can speak with authenticity and feel supported. There's nothing better than that face-to-face engagement. With that said, I know that the supports are much stronger that way. Now, how that coincides or coalesces with community violence, I can't justify that as a yes. Now, furthermore, we have to look at this, and I want to make sure, because I lead 18,000 students and we have student groups. And I'm visible amongst our community and visible amongst our students. And the parents are actively involved, but I'll take it to another level. Our students are extremely involved, and they follow and carry on the words that I say. As the superintendent, to sit here and say that, the young people are responsible for this violence in the city would be false.
All the parents are actively involved?
Many of the parents are actively involved. So let me I'll give you a data point, because there are a lot of discussions around online learning. There are some barriers that must be overcome, but there are some success points. One of the successful pieces that we found is through parent engagement, parent-teacher night attendance, where there's dialogue with the educators and the teachers. This year, in a virtual environment, our parents are participating at over 95%. That's engagement. That's engagement. So we'll take that as a positive. But on the other hand, with our students in regards to, taking on the responsibility to maintain safe communities, they are children. There are adults that surround, that are in the peripheral or either directly involved in some of the violence which occurs in the city. This, as Mayor Morán often states, we are each other's neighbors. This is a community thing, a community pandemic, so to speak, that we are confronting. So, I'm very much confident that with, having students in close proximity to our educators in Reading School District, we will have more success with helping them in regards to empathy and social and emotional development and learning.
One more question.
I have a question. We spoke about prostitution, we spoke about portfolio, issues and violence in our community. What are we doing as far as prevention? I know there's organizations like mine that, are coming and we're looking at that. And I would love the support of the police department and your school, red school,
I'm sorry, that's okay.
Prevention. In terms of prevention.
You want to do it?
for instance, the Reading Police Department, you guys have a youth program. Is that still in place? And what do you know?
Yes, our youth academy is still in place. We are waiting for the Reading School District to resume in-person instruction in order to do the in-person instruction that we do, because we really can't run the program that we have virtually. So as soon as we're back in the classroom, we'll be back engaging the youth with our youth academy. We have everything in place to do that, and we're hoping that sometime this summer we can get back to it. And the other thing is, in terms of prevention, if there are groups such as yours that want to engage with the police department, the community, to look at prevention measures related to gun violence, you can certainly welcome that help. Again, this isn't something that the police department is going to solve on its own. We need the help from our educators, from community groups, from faith-based organizations. Everybody who's out there needs to be involved and engaged in this fight against violence.
And again, that's exactly what I said, what I meant earlier, that we look forward for collaboration we look forward to having dialogue. Sit down. We can't do this alone. We need input from the community, and like the saying goes, it takes a village. All right. Thank you guys so much once again. Want to wish you all safe, healthy day and weeks to come. Thank you. Thank you, sir. All right. I'm gonna talk to you in a little bit. I'm just gonna read this. Okay. All right.
Fantastic. Right, thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody gonna record it in Spanish? Because we are, okay. Le queremos dar gracias al doctor Mumin, que se tiene que despedir. Desafortunadamente, él tiene otro compromiso que tenía en anticipación de esta reunión. Pero el Chief of Police se va a quedar aquí con nosotros. Nuevamente, buenas tardes a todos y gracias por estar aquí. Voy a compartir un resumen en español de nuestros anuncios que ocurrieron hoy día, porque es muy importante para el beneficio de nuestros residentes latinos y los medios de comunicación hispanos que nos acompañan hoy día. Compartía que el tema que abordamos hoy de suma importancia, que nos preocupa a todos y merece respuestas, es criminalidad aquí en la ciudad de Redding. Luego de eventos y balaceros ocurridos recientemente, los residentes han pedido de nuestra administración no solo que nos expresemos sobre estos crímenes en la ciudad de Redding, sino que tengamos medidas. Es por eso que hoy me acompaña el jefe del departamento de policía, el señor Chief Richard Tornielli, junto que estaba presente el superintendente de la escuela del distrito escolar de Redding, el doctor Mumin, en la cual nuevamente se tuvo que excusar. Pero es importante que sepan que esto es algo que tenemos que trabajar juntos para formar alianzas, y por eso es que estamos aquí en conjuntos. Si bien las estadísticas muestran que de la equivalencia de reducir aquí en Redding ha sido bajado por un 22% en el año 2020. Nuevamente, el crimen bajó el año pasado por un 22%. Desafortunadamente, los recientes balaceras han perpetuado a nuestros residentes y con mucha razón. Le quiero decir que la criminalidad y la delincuencia que llevan estas situaciones no son bienvenidas aquí en Redding. Nosotros vamos a combatir con todo lo que podamos y como mejor podamos. Las familias están divididas. Los vecindarios están afectados. Y las comunidades sufren debido a la violencia con armas. Con mucha honestidad les digo, la alcaldía no puede combatir el crimen por sí solo. Se necesita toda una comunidad para resolver estos problemas. No los podemos hacer solos nuevamente. Por eso me siento bien seguro que lo que yo digo regularmente, que somos vecinos de uno al otro, es más importante que nunca hoy día. Hoy vengo a hacer una llamada de acción. Primero, la ciudad participará en un programa de compra de armas para sacarlas de nuestras calles. Según varios estudios, se han demostrado que los programas de compra de armas rinden resultados, no solo reduciendo la cantidad de armas en nuestras calles, sino también reduciendo los accidentes y las muertes. Más de 27% de los residentes de Pensilvania poseen armas de acuerdo con un estudio hecho de Injury Prevention. He confirmado que de hecho los estadounidenses poseen 121 armas de fuego por cada 100 civiles. Es una estadística alarmante por mínimo. Cuando comparamos esos con otros países vecinos, por ejemplo, Canadá reporta 53 armas de fuego por cada 100 civiles. Aún más sorprendido estoy que en México, donde se reportan 13 armas de fuego por cada 100 civiles. Las investigaciones también han demostrado que en algunas ciudades de los Estados Unidos, como Sacramento, que más del 40% de los participantes en el programa de compra de armas no adquieren otro arma después de dejar el que tienen a la ciudad. Esta es una herramienta que ha demostrado su eficiencia y estamos conscientes que va a servir y va a hacerse positiva en nuestra comunidad. El segundo herramienta que me gustaría hablar hoy es de la exploración de un programa de policía auxiliar que promueve a los residentes a trabajar en conjunto con el departamento de policía. Los oficiales auxiliares serían civiles entrenadores por apoyar a la policía y servir como voluntarios que donarían su tiempo para servir de ojos a nuestra comunidad. También proveen ayudar a la policía a controlar el tráfico durante eventos especiales, la entrada de datos y programas en la computadora y la vigilancia en nuestra comunidad. Sí se requiere que estos oficiales asistan a clases de capacitación y talleres que tendrán los funcionarios internos del departamento de policía. Completan una verificación de penales y cualquier capacitación adicional. En otras palabras, vamos a asegurar que estas personas estén equipadas y que nosotros hacemos las investigaciones necesarias para asegurar que ellos estén adecuados para asistir en este trabajo voluntario. Nuevamente, estas iniciativas requieren un análisis profundo, colaboración y recursos, por lo que se encuentra actualmente en una fase de discusión. Vamos a asegurar que le demos más seguimiento a esto en los días que nos vienen. Yo, junto con el jefe Tornielli y los líderes comunitarios, nos estaremos reuniendo para discutir más a fondo estas iniciativas. Por último, nuestro llamado de acción va a ser realizado asegurando que organizaciones en nuestra comunidad como Youth Bill, Moms Demand Action, the Village of Reading, Reading Recreation Commission, Olivet Boys and Girls Club, el Distrito Escolar y todos que tienen interés genuino en enfrentar en el crimen en nuestra comunidad, que nos pongamos unidos. Por eso le pido a aquellos que están interesados en participar y ser parte de esta iniciativa, que se comuniquen con mi oficina para poder dialogar y venir y traer ideas que van a traer fruto a pelear el crimen en nuestra comunidad. Ese número es el 610-655-6234. Nuevamente, estas son conversaciones que estamos llevando en principio, pero yo soy una persona que no me gusta venir y dar un discurso sin tener un plan de acción. A mí no me gusta anunciar nada más por anunciar. Me gusta anunciar si vamos a proceder con asegurando que haya una acción atrás de nuestros comentarios. Por eso es que hoy estamos reunidos aquí, para pedirle a la comunidad que vamos a unirnos, vamos a compartir el crimen juntos, que yo sí los escucho y que voy a asegurar que voy a buscar los recursos necesarios para combatir este reciente crimen que está ocurriendo en nuestras comunidades.
Un solo comentario.
Sí, cómo no.
Yo diría directamente a esas familias que están aquí en Berry, que ya les da miedo, digamos, salir después de 6 de la tarde, que están prácticamente encerrados, ¿no? Y que muchos vienen de países en los que esa es la realidad, en los que crece uno pensando, no puedo salir, pero están aquí en Estados Unidos.
Perdona, repítame tu pregunta, que no te escucho muy bien.
¿Qué mensaje le envió a esas familias que ya están pensando que después de 6, 7 de la noche no pueden salir, que le dicen a sus hijos no salgan, no vayan por aquí, no vayan por allá? Familias que vienen huyendo también de países en los que esa es la realidad, que hay mucha inseguridad, pero ahora están aquí en Estados Unidos y dicen, bueno, ahora estamos en la misma situación.
Sí.
¿Qué le diría usted a ellos?
Sí, eso es una realidad, desafortunadamente. Yo soy padre de jóvenes de 20 años, y cuando yo decidí a correr para alcalde, eso era una de mis preocupaciones, que estaba cansado, que yo le estaba diciendo a ellos que si querían ir a buscar algo de comer después de las 6, las 7 de la tarde, le decía, no, ve a tal sitio que es más seguro que en tal sitio. No podemos vivir así, no es justo, no es apropiado. Tenemos que buscar maneras para eliminar esas preocupaciones. Yo creo que estamos yendo a un mejor sitio. Todavía existen esas preocupaciones, pero estamos haciendo todo lo posible para crear mejores opciones en el downtown, por ejemplo, lo que era el building de el Reading Eagle se va a transformar en un sitio en la que va a tener un gimnasio, va a tener una piscina, va a tener algunos negocios, va a tener un parque de trampolín. Sí estamos haciendo cosas para mejorar nuestra comunidad. Sí, es una preocupación válida, pero yo creo que nuevamente juntos podemos combatir y tenemos que unirnos para asegurar de que eso no continúe. Gracias nuevamente. Thank you.